Okay, let's see if we can make the repair fast enough that we don't make the video painful. I'd like to get to the seam edges. So I'm going to just start off by deleting that outside um, surface there. Let's separate everything completely out, right? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that surface out there and I'm going to run merge, which is going to get this full edge back because there's these slivers right here. I'll show you on the bottom one before I do it. So if I there's no edges there. If I go to select this and see how it's all broken up, I'm going to run merge. And what that does is it merges that edge back there. And what that allows me to do is when I recreate the surface, when I recreate the surface, I'm not creating that this stuff right here again. These are tiny little surfaces that were part of what was mucking up the thing before. And so uh, I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to capture this edge and capture this edge, doing a Control C and a Control V, paste. And then I also want to do the same thing on the inside, but that needs merge also. Tab, merge. There you go. Which allows me to capture that. Control C, Control V. And then I'm going to also move that down so I have it because now I can recreate those two surfaces. Control C, Control V. And so what I can do is now I can delete this surface here, right? And then what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to recreate that outer surface. There's the, let's do the inner one first. And I'm going to use loft. And by the way, the loft with no caps on it. The loft allows you, see, there's your seam edge on your loft. So you're going to want to pay attention to where that is. If that was coming out into here where you're going to have to do stuff, you can move that around you can grab those and move them, right? So go ahead and this is where you're paying attention to your seam edges. So there's one. Now I'm going to loft the outside edge. Same thing, that seam edge is there in the back for that one. That's completely out of the way of everything. So I'm going to say, okay. Now what I can do is take all of this, well, minus the edges. Let's get rid of those edges. Starting to make it painful now. Delete, delete. Okay, there we go. So now I'm gonna do all of that and then get those two edges, and we're gonna. Did I get that stuff in there? I didn't want that. Did I delete that inner surface before I create that? Yes, I did. Right. So let's select that. Let's get these out of the way. I'm gonna color those orange. I'm confusing myself already. So let's get that out of the way. So now let's get this and this. We're gonna loft it. Okay. Now I'm gonna choose this and this, and we're gonna loft that. Okay. Now I can select that and delete them. Select that and delete it. And let's get that and delete it. Now I should be able to just select all of this stuff here and join it. That's what I was looking for. And now I'm going to just planer to close off that bottom hatch again. So now you have a good solid that's been repaired. So let's go ahead and hide that. Let's bring back this stuff here. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to recover all those objects by selecting all the edges and hitting delete. That recovers all the objects. So here's where you could go back and review how did you cut that hole out of, how did you make all that couple of cylinders or the circles you use. These things don't, there's like 3 different seam edges all stacked up. So let's just get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. And then these are just some little end caps. We're going to get rid of those. And then now what we want to do is I'm going to, let's select these. And we're going to recover these into a solid by running planar, right? And those are solid. So let's hide those. Now, what I want to do is select these and delete them because we don't need those there anymore. I'm going to select these 4, and we're going to make a solid out of these by running planar on them. Now, let's delete. I think there's surfaces under there, so I'm going to make sure I select all just the solids by clicking underneath like that and getting the solids. Then I'm going to hide those. Now I can just select those surfaces and get rid of them. And then these are also need to be selected and made solid because we're going to use these in our rebuild. So planar. Okay. And now what I can do is go in and select those little top pieces. Oh, those top pads can be deleted. So all of these are the end caps of the cylinders that we recovered. And so we don't need those anymore, but I want to get rid of all of these things here. So I'm going to select the Windows, select all of those and delete those. Now, what we can do is, let's go back to our objects here so you can see what I'm doing. So now you see how these little cutting objects for your Boolean don't go all, they just come up and they skim edges and stuff. We're going to fix that. We're going to use and this is part of getting rid of seam edges and little slivery things, right? We're going to use, where's my cursor? I've lost, oh, here it is over there. Okay, there's a program, command Michael wrote called Flow Extend Surface. And it's just going to enlarge all of these to be proper cutting surfaces that we need. So I'm going to go around and just get a proper cutting surface on everything before I move forward. This is just to get to, we're trying to get the rebuild done, right? And so there's that. And now I want to go down here. I'm going to cut off all those cylinders to be the right height. And so those are going to be that. I'm going to Boolean difference, put that line right there. And that'll allow me to select the bottom of all those and get rid of them. Now it all should be perfect. With that, let's go ahead and Boolean all those together. So, we'll start off with just check line. There's no Boolean. Okay. Now, what I didn't really get into it, because I'm going to wait and show you on the end, but I should be looking at where that seam on that cylinder was, because I'm Booleaning it into another object, right? So well, there it is. Okay, so still have a solid. Oh, didn't want to do that, did I? I'm going to back up. Very good. What I wanted to do, because I forgot I'm rebuilding something. So I'm going to want to cut off the top of all these little things with the little plate we made. So let's go to Boolean difference. You can see the warts. I'm not going to redo the video to make sure I really look like I'm a genius here. So I'm just going around and I'm slicing off that thing that we're going to boolean. Repeat. Rinse, lather, and repeat is what a lot of stuff is. Okay, now those are ready for those actions that we did. So let's boolean union. Let's get those two. And then two more. Those are union. Okay, now I can, same thing. See, here's the seam edge on these cylinders. I think I ran through this, so I'm not too worried about it. So I want to show you on the last bit, but normally you would be paying attention to every single one of these as you do your booleans, because what that's doing is that's making a seam edge in here somewhere where you plan on doing other booleans. You see what I mean? And so let's go ahead and now what you would do to get the rest of your thing, and I'm going to show you, is this is where I wanted to get to. So let's boolean difference these cylinders out. And then I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So this is your object again. It's a solid. Let's verify that that it's a good form solid that will disappear the edge. Okay. That's what you were talking about. So we just rebuilt it. It should all be good. But what I wanted to show you was what I was posting about. See the seam edge of that cylinder? See how close it is right there? If that would get, if it was rotated a little more or involved with some other things, this starts getting near this edge here, and all of a sudden you got these little slivery things, and then you start stacking them up. So what you want to do is, I'm going to back up. And so what you really want to do is, let's go view that from the bottom so we can see, is we want to move that edge out into somewhere where we know there's no other edges and it won't be interfering. So I think that's called an end. Let's go to rotate, see if we can find it with this. That end is going to be, I think there's the end right there. So we already know it's going to be there. So if I take that end and I put it over here, then when I go to Boolean that one, right? See how the seam edge is over here? And I know it's not in any other edge here if I knew where that edge was. So now when I Boolean that out, that edge won't be actually even in this part. Watch. So let's go Boolean difference. Okay, you see how it's a nice clean surface in there? That edge is in here. The edge is going to be right there. Okay, so now there's going to be other seam edges in there. That was the other one. Remember the bigger cylinder I just did? So you want to make sure those are completely separate from each other. Now your Booleans just all work. But it just so happens that all the rest of these are skimming really close to that. None of them are creating that little slivery thing, but that's what your model had, was a bunch of little slivery things. So just pay attention to where this edge is when you're going to Boolean it out of something else that has other edges and seams in it. See how that one's going to be there. So, I mean, preferably, depending on what you had plans down the road, this would Boolean and be a nice model already. But if you're really going to do more stuff and more cutting and more diffing and more adding later, you want to get these edges well out of the way. Anyway, that's basically rebuilding your model and then setting it up, doing what I described, which is making sure your seam edges you want to look at your workflow at how you're creating those. Now, we wanted that to be a difference, didn't we? part of you're going like, well, listen, Burr, I didn't use a bunch of cylinders. Well, your circle does the same thing. So I'll just show you on the outside of your thing. Here's a circle. And let's see, let's get that up so we can see it. What are we on the right side? Okay, that circle is going to have a seam edge. It's going to have a seam edge when you do a Boolean. So if I extrude that circle, that seam edge is going to be over here on this right side, over here, right? So if I let's get rid of the solid end made with it. So if I take this and I Boolean diff with that circle, that seam edge is going to be there too. There's that seam edge. So that's how, you might have done a bunch of circle things. And when you do a bunch of circles all stacked together, they slightly get moved off. That little seam edge is just slowly rotated. You make a bunch of little slivers that are supposed to be in the same place, but they're actually just little squishy-doshes off of each other. And that's what creates all those things. So you could, you would alleviate that by, you back up. And then now I could, if I rotate that over there, now when I Boolean diff it, I rotated it up, remember? So now my seam edge is up there. So that's just paying attention to the seams I was talking about. Okay, that's enough. I'm just blathering now. Talk later.